Everyone on the sidewalk stopped, their eyes spellbound, as the young woman with cafe au lait skin gently placed her hand on the hood of a blazing red Ferrari SF90 parked grandly in front of Bergdorf Goodman, like a piece of art misplaced in the chaos of the city. Her fingers weren't rough like a laborer's, but soft, deliberate, as if she were listening to the heartbeat of a sleeping machine. But that peaceful moment was shattered in an instant when a tall man in a sleek charcoal gray suit burst out. From inside the building, his eyes blazing with fury and his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "Get away from my car!" He had no idea who she was. No clue that in just a few minutes, every assumption he held would be obliterated. He didn't know that what she was about to do would silence everyone watching, make this entire city rethink everything, and force him, a billionaire CEO, to see his life through different eyes. Because sometimes, the person we think the least of is the only one holding the key to the door that's been locked inside us all along. Now, before we go on, ask yourself this. If you were that girl facing down a powerful, wealthy, arrogant man full of prejudice, what would you do? Step back, stay quiet, or stand still and make the world listen? This isn't a typical love story. It starts with humiliation. It goes through a silent war no one sees. And then, detail by detail, piece by piece, it becomes something else. Deeper, more real, and more unforgettable than any story you've ever heard. Before we begin, don't forget to hit subscribe, like the video, and drop a comment where you're watching. Morning light in November streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows on the 42nd floor of a penthouse as vast as a museum in the heart of Manhattan, casting long streaks across the cold marble floor. Nathaniel Brooks, 38 years old, 6'2", body carved like stone, in a Tom Ford suit that hugged his shoulders and waist like second skin, stood silently. His steel blue eyes weren't focused on the numbers on his tablet, but instead swept across the row of cars in his private garage like a father watching his sleeping children. He could have hired a private engineering team to care for those machines, but no one was allowed to touch the bright red 2023 Ferrari SF90 straight ale, his prized possession, one of only 5 in the world, and the only one in New York with a custom Italian interior. He ran a finger gently along the carbon fiber hood, touching the body as if it were alive. A part of his soul, a fragment of whatever was left in his life that could still make him feel something real. Money? He had more than enough. Power? Never lacking. But peace, closeness, the feeling of being understood without needing to explain. He couldn't remember the last time he felt that. "Mr. Brooks, your driver is waiting in the lobby," came the voice of Alexa, his AI assistant, through the smart speaker, slicing through his drifting thoughts. He nodded slightly. Didn't respond, eyes still fixed on the car, a soft chime from his phone, another dating app notification, another woman, blonde, selfie, bio full of luxury travel and successful men. He swiped left without a second thought. Another one looking for a wallet, not a heart. He used to believe success would bring love, recognition, and connection. But the higher he climbed, the further those things drifted. Just like the way people looked at him, admiring, but never truly touching. At the same time, across the city, in a small garage tucked away in Long Island City, the hiss of compressors and the clang of metal tools echoed in a familiar symphony. In a world of engine oil, sweat, and cold white light from industrial lamps, Zoe Washington, 28, 5'6", lean and sharp-eyed like a freshly sharpened blade, slid out from under a dark green Lamborghini Huracan. Her orange coveralls were streaked with oil, grease, and flecks of paint dust. But in every movement, from how she held her wrench to how she wiped her hands on the nearby canvas rag, there was something different. Not just skill, but command. the presence of someone who fully belonged in their world. The freshly tuned engine growled softly like a beast healed. Zoe tilted her head up and smirked. 3 others had failed. She'd fixed it in 6 hours. Rappers and their toys. Kinda cute, really? She muttered, stepping out of the garage with phone in hand and her curly hair tied back. A message popped up from Kelly, her best friend since engineering school. 12 p.m. today, Bergdorf Goodman. I booked a spot. Don't be late. Zoe smiled, eyes softening. She opened her locker and swapped her coveralls for a teal blouse and fitted jeans. Nothing flashy, but just enough to turn heads in Manhattan. The city was buzzing now. Rushing footsteps, car horns, fragments of conversation in a dozen different languages. Zoe walked the sidewalk like she was part of New York, distinct, but not out of place. When she reached the front of Bergdorf Goodman, her eyes locked onto the car parked out front. And in that fleeting moment, the world seemed to pause. Ferrari SF90 Stradale, bright red, handcrafted front splitter, carbon fiber rear wing. She didn't need to look closely. This was the limited edition, one of 5 tailored for ultra VIP clients. She stepped forward, not like a curious onlooker, but like an artist admiring the work of a peer. Her hand reached out, fingertip brushing the hood, tracing the sculpted lines down the body as if feeling the pulse of a mechanical creature. And then, a voice tore through the calm. "Get away from my car!" A man's voice, cold, angry, judgmental. She turned. The man in the Tom Ford suit was striding toward her, face hard as stone. Even from that distance, she saw it in his eyes, that ice-blue glare burning with disdain. Nathaniel Brooks, fresh, from a failed acquisition meeting with his legal team. Already on edge, he froze when he saw someone touching his Ferrari. The one thing he considered untouchable. Zoe blinked. In that moment, she wasn't Zoe, the high-end mechanic who had restored a McLaren F1, whose waiting list stretched 3 months for supercar collectors. She was just a black woman being shouted at on the street in broad daylight. "What do you think you're doing?" Zoe straightened, both hands slightly raised, calm. "Sorry, I was just admiring." "Admiring?" Nathaniel sneered. He stepped in close, his breath nearly touching her face. "You just laid your entire hand on a car worth more than most people will earn in their lifetime. Do you know that even a scratch from a fingernail could get you sued, and you're smearing your oil, your sweat, whatever on my car? Who gave you permission?" It wasn't just a threat. It was a sentence, and in his mind, the way she looked was the crime. Zoe bit her lip. She knew this tone, this looks, too well. And it hurt every time. She almost walked away. But not this time. This time she stood her ground. "Sir, I didn't mean any harm," she said evenly. "I was just admiring. This is a very special machine." "Special machine?" Nathaniel let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Do you even know what this is?" "This is a Ferrari SF90 Stradale, one of 5 globally customized builds. Just the carbon fiber alone costs more than your car." "Oh, sorry, maybe you don't even have a car." A small crowd was forming. Some people frowned. A few looked down at their phones. No one stepped in. This was New York. People saw everything and learned not to interfere. Zoe didn't move, but her fists clenched. Part of her wanted to walk away, to keep her dignity by not reacting. But the way he looked at her, like she didn't belong here, like her existence was a mistake. She didn't walk away. "Actually," Zoe said, her tone sharpening, "the better question is, do you even know what you own?" Nathaniel froze. "What are you talking about?" "Your brake fluid reservoir is nearly empty. I saw it from the nose drop on the front axle. Left rear tire has uneven wear. Could be a camber issue or minor frame impact. And your exhaust tips show faint discoloration, a sign your hybrid system is out of sync." She paused, looked him straight in the eye. "If you really knew cars, you'd have noticed. The air went still, and Nathaniel Brooks, CEO of one of America's biggest tech companies, suddenly felt like he'd been slapped in public. "Listen, you—" His phone buzzed. He glanced down. "Exclusive auto services, his private garage." He answered, still staring at her. "Hello?" "Mr. Brooks, urgent update," came the voice of Mr. Chun, his lead tech. "Your Ferrari just triggered a hybrid system fault. Serious. It could damage the engine if not addressed immediately. We're dispatching someone now." Nathaniel's face changed. He looked at the car, then back at Zoe. She said nothing more, just looked at him. Not smug, not pitying, just right. He stammered. "When can they—" Zoe turned, took 2 steps, then stopped, not out of fear, not regret, just because sometimes you stop not to confront someone but to watch them confront themselves. His phone buzzed again. He was about to ignore it, but the screen read, "Exclusive auto, urgent referral." He picked up, trying to stay composed. "Hello?" A calm, professional male voice replied, "Mr. Brooks, we've confirmed your SF90 needs hybrid recalibration. And we've also confirmed the only qualified expert on the East Coast to handle this model system is someone named Zoe Washington." Nathaniel went still. His mouth went dry. His hand gripped the phone like it had just hurled reality straight into his face. Zoe Washington stood there, not turning back, but close enough to hear. The woman he had just humiliated in the middle of the street. "I'm the person you're waiting for," Zoe said, like a punch straight to the pride Nathaniel Brooks believed untouchable. The crowd around them said nothing, but their eyes spoke volumes. He had just done something money couldn't fix. He had insulted the one person he now desperately needed. Zoe stood still. No defensiveness, no anger, no retreat. And that calm hit deeper than any scream, shame sinking into Nathaniel's skin like cold iron. At that moment, there were no more supercars, no more hurried footsteps on Fifth Avenue's pavement, no more holiday music spilling from storefronts, just the crushing silence between them and the beginning of a fracture in the belief system inside Nathaniel's head. He slowly lowered his phone, his voice unrecognizable. You're really Zoe Washington?" Her posture relaxed, and her eyes no longer belonged to someone who'd just been humiliated. They were the eyes of someone calculating whether the person in front of her was worth another minute of her time. "I need to bring the car back to my garage," she said, her gaze clinical, almost cold. "It shouldn't be driven in this condition. I recommend I take the wheel." Nathaniel blinked. "You want to drive my Ferrari?" Zoe didn't respond with words. She just looked at him, an expression that clearly said, "Did you really just ask something that dumb?" And for the first time in a long time, Nathaniel felt small. Not insulted, just diminished, standing in front of someone who wasn't just competent, but so composed and in control she made him feel like a child holding a toy. "Of course," he stammered, handing over the keys with both hands like an apology that hadn't yet taken form. Zoe nodded, took the fob, and opened the door with practiced ease. She settled into the driver's seat, adjusted the mirror, fastened the belt, every motion precise, like a conductor before the downbeat. When the hybrid engine came to life, it didn't roar, it exhaled, like a mechanical being waking from a dream. She pulled away, smooth, confident, fast enough to turn heads but quiet enough to make a statement. A black woman behind the wheel of a hypercar that everyone assumed couldn't possibly belong to her. Nathaniel just stood there, watching the car vanish into traffic, then exhaled slowly. But it wasn't the sigh of someone who had lost something. It was the sigh of someone stepping into a world they hadn't known they needed. The underground garage beneath his building, usually a sterile sanctuary where no one but Nathaniel and the maintenance team were allowed, felt smaller the moment Zoe arrived. She didn't announce herself, didn't assert authority. She didn't need to. Just by being in that space, she made everything else, every piece of equipment, every cold white wall, every other car, feel less important. Zoe set down her toolkit, pulled a hybrid scanner from her bag, and plugged it directly into the diagnostics port. Nathaniel didn't interrupt. He was watching a performer, but not a dancer, not a singer, a technician, speaking a language he'd never learned. "The electrical system's out of sync," she said, eyes on the screen. "The hybrid module's drifting 12% from the central management system. One more hard acceleration and the whole car could stall." Nathaniel nodded, not sure if he fully understood. "This garage has everything I need," she said, coolly. "I'll work from here. You can go." "No," he said, too quickly. I want to stay. At least, help, somehow." Zoe looked at him, long enough for him to question whether he'd just said something ridiculous. Then she nodded slightly. "Fine. Just don't get in the way." So they stayed, in the same space. No small talk, no bonding, just mutual presence, accepted in silence. Zoe worked like a surgeon, urgent, focused, calm. Nathaniel, at first, a bystander, became a helper, handing tools, holding the light, wiping sweat, small jobs. But for the first time in his life, he felt useful without signing a check. Between movements, Zoe spoke, not looking up. "How long have you been driving?" "This car?" "Almost a year," he said, "mostly on weekends." "Do you drive because you love speed, or because you hate silence?" The question pierced through his polished armor like a pin to a balloon. He paused. "I think I drive to remind myself I'm still alive." Zoe nodded. "A lot of people do." Another pause. Then she added, "I once drove a Koenigsegg Jesko. After I rebuilt the entire transmission myself." Nathaniel turned to her, hearing the faintest edge of pride in her voice for the first time. Not arrogance, just truth, a hard-earned one. As she tightened the last bolt, she spoke again, without looking up. "You know why I chose this profession?" Nathaniel raised his head, about to say something, but stopped. He didn't know, and wasn't sure he should. Zoe kept working, her voice steady like a heartbeat monitor. "Machines don't lie. If they're off, the numbers say so. Not some bias." She wiped her forehead, then looked up. "No anger, no apology. Machines don't care that I'm black, or where I went to school. They don't ask who my father was. Don't check my bank card. They only care about one thing. Do I know how to fix it?" Nathaniel swallowed hard. That wasn't meant for him, but it landed anyway, like a shard of glass driven into a pride he once believed untouchable. 3 hours passed. The LED lights still glowed white, but they didn't feel cold anymore. Nathaniel had shed his blazer. His sleeves were rolled up, cuffs stained with oil. He wasn't standing anymore. He was helping, passing tools, holding lights, wiping down circuit boards. Silent. Zoe held up a module, scorched in a few spots. "This part's slightly burned." "It's salvageable," she said, like a doctor reading a scan. She looked up at him, straight. "You drive this car like you're mad at someone." Nathaniel didn't flinch. The words hit him square in the chest. "And he let them sit there." "Maybe I am," he admitted. Zoe wasn't surprised. She just nodded, like someone who'd seen that kind of damage in 100 engines and didn't need the backstory. "Who are you mad at?" she asked. Simple question, heavy weight. Not in how she asked, but in who was asking, and her silence that made space for the answer. Nathaniel leaned against the tool bench for a long while. "I used to think I had everything under control. Money, partners, PR, narrative," he said. "I thought I could buy peace of mind the way I buy software licenses." He paused. His eyes reddened, not from weakness, but from finally admitting something real. "But what I can't buy is sleep, or someone who stays without a contract. Zoe slid out from under the car, pulled a chair close. No comfort, no coddling, just handed him a towel. You just told the truth. First time since I met you. Nathaniel stared at her, unblinking. You're the first person who made me feel safe enough to do that. In a room full of machines, oil, and tangled circuit boards, there was no hierarchy left. Just two people. One once swallowed by power and left empty. The other buried under bias and still standing. And in that moment, it wasn't the understanding that passed between them. It was the end of judgment. Zoe was tightening a wire bundle when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. No name. A soft exhale, like she already knew this call was coming. She answered without lifting her hands. Zoe, we've got a problem, the male voice on the line said, tense. The city attorney's office just called. They're opening an investigation into that McLaren crash last week. The owner listed your shop in the service history. They're requesting you come in. No expression on her face. Just the eyes, quiet, deep, then dimming slightly. No questions, no surprise. Just one word. When? Tomorrow afternoon. Got it. She hung up before the voice could say more. Nathaniel saw something shift in her, not loud, but cold, like someone just closed a door in their mind. He stepped closer, gently. What's going on? Zoe stood upright. Her shirt was stained with oil. She looked at him, eyes direct. No defenses, no plea. There was an accident. They say that the car came through my shop. She pulled off her gloves, balled them, and tossed them in the toolbox. Now, they need someone to name. And I happened to be standing closest. A beat of silence. Neither of them spoke. Then she gave a soft laugh, not joyful, just the sound of breath taking shape. Nothing new, she said, slipping on her jacket. These past few years, I've gotten better at proving I'm innocent than being asked if I'm okay. Nathaniel opened his mouth, but no words came, and he knew. This time, sorry wasn't enough. Zoe adjusted her tool bag, then walked past. Him. I'll report in tomorrow, she said, like announcing rain in the forecast. And if anyone asks, just say I'm the mechanic. Don't get involved. No one wants to be dragged into trouble that isn't theirs. But you didn't do anything wrong, did you? Nathaniel asked, voice low. Zoe gave a faint smile, shook her head. I've never wronged a machine, but that's never been enough to keep me safe. She walked away. No looking back. No need. And he stayed behind, for the first time, angry not at an insult, but at the fact that someone else had grown used to being treated like a suspect just for doing their job. Have you ever been in a room where no one expected you to belong and then proved them all wrong? Hit that subscribe button. Your story matters too. Zoe sat across from the attorney in the sterile, white-lit room of a Manhattan legal office, her hands folded tightly in her lap until her fingertips turned pale. Each question from the man in front of her felt like the same knife reopening the same wound. During the service of Mr. Marcus Devine's McLaren, did you alter or interfere with the brake system in any way? No. Do you have proof? 3 sets. Zoe's voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp, clear as the edge of a blade. Internal logs, a signed paper copy, and an encrypted backup. Then why is the vehicle's owner claiming the car had issues after leaving your shop? Zoe looked him straight in the eyes. She stayed silent, not because she didn't know the answer, but because the question didn't deserve one. Not from someone unwilling to hear the truth. If he hadn't been doing 180 km/h on a rain-slicked bridge, that McLaren wouldn't have spun out and slammed into a barrier. But no one wanted to hear that. The door opened. The lawyer returned, accompanied by a silver-haired man, short, stocky, but exuding authority, wearing a black suit and carrying the weight of a formal hearing. We'll need to impound your vehicle for further inspection, he said. And We're requiring you to refrain from working on any cars until the investigation concludes. A sentence without a verdict. A punishment wrapped in procedure. That sentence landed like a blade. For someone else, being barred from work might just be an inconvenience. For Zoe, it was a stripping away, a cutoff from the only place she'd ever felt valued. She nodded. Said nothing. No pleading. No justifying. No appeals. She was used to people not listening to who she actually was. They only heard what they thought she represented. That afternoon, Nathaniel sat at a boardroom table on the 43rd floor, surrounded by the company's new executive team. The sunset bounced off reinforced glass, but the room felt ice cold. On the screen was a headline: Zoe Washington, supercar mechanic under investigation for McLaren crash. The PR director looked at Nathaniel, tapping a pen rhythmically on the glass tabletop, voice calm but razor-edged. We need clarity on your connection to her. The media's circling. If we don't move quickly, this could damage the company's image. What image? Nathaniel asked, tension threading through his voice. You've been building a new persona, the reformer CEO, the culture changer, the inspirational leader. If you're linked to someone under criminal investigation, Nathaniel slammed the table. She didn't commit a crime. She's being dragged into this because she's brilliant and doesn't fit your idea of what that should look like. The room went dead silent. No one replied. She's a good person. And if I have to choose between a fake reputation and the truth, I choose the truth. If this company can't handle that, we're not aligned. He stood, unbuttoned his collar, and pulled out his phone. Dialed. His voice was low but firm. Dr. Young, I need an independent assessment of that McLaren. I'll cover everything personally. 3 days later, the independent evaluation confirmed the crash wasn't caused by mechanical failure. The upgraded controller, a non-OEM modification, had been installed by the owner after leaving Zoe's garage. Zoe was officially cleared of wrongdoing, but the temporary suspension remained, pending internal administrative resolution. Zoe sighed, not from exhaustion over the wait, but from the lack of surprise. She had never had the privilege of being naive. That evening, she got a message. I need you back at the garage, not to fix the car, to fix me. N. When she walked into the familiar underground garage, Zoe saw Nathaniel standing beside the Ferrari. No suit, just a black t-shirt and jeans. No assistant, no PR director, just a man holding something small in his hands. As she approached, he handed it to her. A slim metal box. She opened it. Inside was a key, not to the Ferrari, but to the little garage in Long Island City. You bought it? She asked cautiously. No. I paid for a lifetime lease in your name, not to buy you off. To give back what made you into the person this world needs, but once dismissed. She was silent for a long time, then said, No one's ever done anything like that for me. Nathaniel stepped closer, stopping just in front of her. Zoe, when I met you, I was a man using a car to feel like I mattered. You were the first person to touch that car and make me feel seen, not for what I had, but for what I lacked. His voice dropped. I've always tried to hold on to things with power. You taught me that some things can only be held with trust. Zoe raised her chin. You know I don't need saving. I know. You just need to be seen right. Zoe pulled a folder from her bag and placed it in his hands. If you really want to walk this path with me, this is the test. He opened it. Inside was the proposal she'd written over 2 years. Project Mobile Wrench, a mobile repair service for underserved neighborhoods where people couldn't afford to tow their cars to garages. She looked him straight in the eyes. Are you ready to drive that Ferrari? Not to show off, but to haul gear to the Bronx, Brooklyn, Harlem, places where kids have never seen someone who looks like them fixing high-end machines? Nathaniel grinned. Not just drive it, I'll wash it afterward. Zoe laughed. For real. For the first time in days. All right, she said. Then we start tomorrow. No, he replied. We start today. Outside, New York stayed loud, but in that basement garage, beneath cold, white lights and the soft hum of diagnostic scanners, something warm had sparked. Not a fairy tale, not a cheap redemption arc, just the beginning of a partnership between two people once defined by surface appearances, now choosing to tear off the glossy coat and live real, live clear, live with purpose. A Ferrari can go 330 km/h, but sometimes slowing down to fix yourself, that's the fastest thing you'll ever do. Thanks for staying till the end. If this hit home, even just a little, share it. Because stories like this don't just deserve to be heard. They deserve to change things.